Now, today's reading is the title is The Infinite Christ. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John contains some of the most profound spiritual teachings in the Bible. In the first chapter, many subtle truths are suggested concerning higher stages of self-realization. Here, John the Baptist is described as one reaching up toward that high state. He was not that light, the Gospel tells us, but was sent to bear witness of that light. Jesus Christ, by contrast, is described as the light itself. That was the true light which lighteneth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. The essential truth stands out in this teaching, that Jesus came not to dogmatize people with a new teaching, but to bring them timeless universal truths. Disciples saw the Master clothed in human form and therefore judged him in terms of his greatness, relative to the greatness of other teachers. Wisdom, however, sees the Master's very greatness in terms of a cosmic unity. There is a passage in The Path by Swami Kriyananda in which this point is emphasized. The Master Paramahansa Yogananda explained, "The saints who attains that exalted consciousness never says, 'I am God,' for he sees it was the vast ocean that became his little wave of ego. The wave, in other words, would not claim, when referring to the little self, to be the ocean." At this juncture, Debbie, who was present, cried excitedly, "But sir, if you are one with that ocean, that means you are God." "Why I?" Master asked. "She say he is God." "But still, sir, you are one with him, and he is the only reality. That means you too are God." "But this body isn't God. You aren't identified with your body, sir, so one may still say you are God." "Well, in that case, why do you say you? You too are that. In a discussion of this sort, it is less confusing if you say he. But what's the difference?" "The scriptures say," Master began. "It's only your humility, sir," Debbie broke in, "that makes you distinguish between yourself and him." "How can there be humility when there is no consciousness of ego?" Triumphantly Debbie cried, "But if you have no ego left, that means you are God." Master laughingly continued the earlier statement which Debbie had interrupted. "The scriptures say, 'He who knows Brahma becomes Brahma.'" "There," cried Debbie, "you said it yourself." Master rejoined, still laughingly, "I didn't say it. It's the scriptures that say so." Master, in other words, would not identify those words with the human body, speaking them. It was in his reaching spirit that he saw himself one with the infinite. But Debbie was unable to make this mental leap from a pure expression of infinity to infinity itself. You quoted those scriptures, sir, he reminded Master relentlessly. That means you agree with them. Recognizing that the distinction was perhaps too subtle for many to grasp, Master concluded, well, he who says he is God isn't God. And he added with a smile, he who says he isn't. And there the subject resetted, aimed general laughter. The greater a spiritual teaching, the more greatly we betray it by particularizing it with dogmas. Truth itself, not the Christian truth or the Hindu truth, incarnates on earth with the birth of a fully liberated master, as the Bhagavad Gita teaches in the 4th chapter. Unborn, changeless, Lord of creation and controller of my cosmic nature, though I am, yet entering nature I am, dressed in the cosmic garment of my own Maya, delusion. O Bharata, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate on earth, taking visible form. I come to destroy evil and re-establish virtue. Thus, through holy scriptures, God has spoken to mankind.
So this is the Whisper 175, Dance in me, thy dance of infinity. O Mother Divine, I have learned to love thy dance of destruction, for I see now what is destroyed is my own ignorance and folly. Thou hast shattered again and again with thy war dance of destruction my fragile cage of bones and flesh, and consigned it to crematory flames. Thou hast done so smilingly to show me and everyone that our souls are ever free and cannot be burned or broken. With thy mercy, thou hast stripped away, sometimes seemingly with harshness, but always with loving purpose, the countless hardened, mud-encrusted covers of delusion that coated us. I appreciate now thy dance of destruction and devastation, O Mother. Together let us cremate my every desire, frailty, weakness, and finitude forever and ever. I will join thee laughing in thy dance of evil's destruction. O Mother, since nothing more is left now of my finiteness for thee to destroy, dance in me thy dance of infinity and of cosmic love. Om. Amen. A very powerful poem there and image of Divine Mother's dance of destruction. So the topic, as Yogendra said today, is the infinite Christ. And that title simply means God beyond creation, God transcendent, God infinite. And the following reading that we heard from Yogindra was about our misunderstanding of who we really are, and that the masters come to remind us of our true reality continuously. In Master's poem Samadhi, which we'll hear later, he says at the very beginning, "Vanished the veils of light and shade, lifted every vapor of sorrow, sailed away all dawns of fleeting joy, gone the dim sensory mirage. Love, hate, health, disease, life, death, perished these false shadows on the screen of duality." In all those words, we hear that everything that we relate to, everything that makes life what it is, has to be gone. Even joy, even love, because they are a part of duality. Someone asked Buddha one time, "What have you gained from meditation?" And he said, "Nothing." "Now, ask me what I lost from meditation." Love, hate, health, disease, life, death. It's exactly the same. I lost anger, he said. I lost fear. I lost resentment. I lost jealousy. You understand that once we have God, when we've meditated to the point where we have God, nothing else exists, nothing, which is hard for us to imagine because of everything that we relate to as reality. We are constantly reminded by the masters to love God, to worship God. That's the beginning of the journey. The end of the journey is we become one with God. That is the infinite expression of God. I remember reading a biography many, many years ago in California of Catherine of Siena, St. Catherine of Siena. And she gathered around her once her outward sadhana, if you will, or mission began, which was many years after she talked to Christ and meditated with Christ, and her sadhana, I think of it as. And then Christ asked her to go out into the world and share what she had gained. And she didn't want to. She told him, but I want to be with you, I want to stay with you. But he was, no, you must do this. But in that, in that time, she drew disciples to her. She had many followers. They were named the Katharinati after her. And once she was very sick because she did so many incredible austerities during her sadhana phase that she really damaged her physical form. Her spiritual form was soaring, but her physical body was very challenged. So she was very, very sick, and they were all very concerned, her followers, and came to, you know, figure out what they could do for her. And one young man later wrote that he was leaning over her to give her a drink or something. And he said he was so concerned, and this fragile little body trying to do all this work. And we don't, you know, we don't stop her. We just, she does it all. And he was feeling that she was this fragile, delicate little person. He said all of a sudden, her face, because her eyes were closed, he said all of a sudden her face became the face of a bearded man. And she opened her eyes and looked right at him and said, "I am he," and closed her eyes again. She knew exactly what he was thinking, and she was saying, "I am not this. This is not me." He said, "I saw Christ." She was one with Christ. And it snapped him back to, our reality is so limited in terms of our potential, of where we are really going. Of course, we have to live in that reality. This reality, the physical plane. We have to, we don't have a choice. But our goal and our consciousness should always be aiming higher as much as possible. And this is why it's so important to try to see God in each other, not just the limited, fragile human being, but the part that is He. As Catherine said, "I am He." This is true of all of us. She realized it. The Masters realize it. We don't realize it yet, but we still have to have it as a goal before us. And think in transcendent ways. Swami Kriyananda was asked once, you know, if God is everything, then the devil is part of God. So what's wrong with doing wrong or being angry or being all those things? It's a valid question. But Swamiji said, that is only true in duality. It's only true on the physical plane. It is not true in God. In God, there is no duality. Light, life, death, joy, love in Samadhi, in the poem Samadhi, Master said, all those vanish. They all disappear. In the oneness of what? The oneness of God, the oneness of bliss. The oneness, as Master puts it, ever new, ever existing joy. So it is our divine birthright, and we have to remind ourselves of it. Yes, it would be hard to live in this state, or even imagining this state on a daily basis, because we have to relate to the physical. But periodically we need to consider that is our true nature and true reality. This is the reason that Master asked us to memorize his poem Samadhi, because it is who you are. I remember many, many years ago going to Disneyland. They don't have this ride anymore, but in this ride, they took you into the world of the atom. So you go in and you're in the normal world, and then everything begins to shrink. I mean, this is just from effects that they do, but everything shrinks and you're a molecule in this ride. And I always remembered Samadhi when I went into that ride. It reminded me of altered states of reality, that we're not who we think we are. We are very, very different from who we think we are. And we have to tune into that often, as much as we possibly can, so that we are, and it's the same with trying to learn and remember the poem Samadhi, memorize it. It's the same, that it's so cosmic and its descriptions are so transcendent. We have to tune into that part of the divine, of God, and know that that's where we're going. You know, there is an image, he's a deity in India, Jagannath. It's a form of Krishna, a very ancient form. But the image is very startling because it's totally unfinished. It's always a piece of wood, which is rare. They often say in India that murtis should be made of, or it's better if they're made of metal or stone. But Jagannath is always wood, particularly neem wood. And it's it has what you could call a face, but everything else is like, there's no clarity. There are no limbs, there's no nose, there's a vague shape, but that's it. How would you be able to manifest a form that is infinity? Because that's what Jagannath represents, the infinite consciousness, the infinite Christ consciousness, in this case the infinite Krishna consciousness. How would you be able to show that? So the deity, unlike most, I mean, he doesn't have arms or legs. Most deities in India have many more than 2 arms and 2 legs. But Jagannath doesn't have any, because they are trying to show this transcendent form of divinity. So while we are here on the physical plane, we have to elevate constantly our awareness of who we are and who others are. When we choose to see people in their weaker, failed nature, rather than in their highest, we are doing them a disservice, yes, but we are definitely doing ourselves a disservice. I mean, it's not a good thing spiritually to do that. I remember Swami would say in some talks that, and I think it was in India, but he was with some people and they were talking about different saints, and he mentioned Yogananda, or someone mentioned Yogananda, and someone present said, "Oh, that cook," because Yogananda was a well-known cook. Now, what does that tell you about the person that said it? Remember in the reading, the person that says that they know, don't know. Think about that statement, "Oh, that cook." That is like saying about Krishna, "Oh, that cow herder." I'm sorry, what?
That cook.
That cook. Cook. Cucinare. Cucina, sì, cook. Okay. So I was saying that the person that says such a thing is not looking beyond the obvious, because it's like saying Krishna, "Oh, that cow herder," or Christ, "Oh, that carpenter." Do you understand? It's like we look at each other, we're musicians, we're technicians, we're translators, we're ministers, we're technicians. We are human beings, but oh, that's not all we are. We have to think that the quote that was in the reading and that we'll do in the festival, Krishna to Arjuna, "Whenever vice predominates and virtue declines, I will come again and again to bring virtue and destroy vice." This is God saying we are valuable enough. We souls are valuable enough to God for God to return again and again through the ages as Buddha, as Krishna, as Christ, as Master, etc. We are valuable enough that they want us to realize and will come to try to tell us over and over who we really are, the infinite God consciousness. And to not only tell us who and what we are, but to show us how to go beyond the material, the physical, the identification with me as this, a finite body. In the Whispers prayer, we heard, it's consigned to a fire or a burial ground, the body, over and over in every incarnation, because it's not who we are. It's like a shawl or a coat that we remove at the end of every life. But the consciousness, the soul, continues from life to life until it is united with God. The idea that we affirm over and over every day that we're this, the body, the mind, the personality, it's impossible to avoid, because we are here relating through this body, through this personality. But we cannot get caught in the delusion that that is the end of the story. There is so much more. Swamiji, not a lot of difference. Swamiji said that Master used to remind him, so in turn, Swamiji would remind us that you are sons and daughters of the infinite. You are not the body. You are sons and daughters of the infinite. And it is possible to be liberated in this life. How many of us accept that statement? How many of us think, well, it would be nice, but that's the problem. As with all spiritual teaching, we have to embrace it as if it were true. Otherwise, we'd never meditate. How long have you been meditating? How many times have you been in samadhi? But even if you've never even tasted it, we still keep trying. We still keep meditating, because that's where we want to go. So we have to consider that we could be one with God at the end of this life. Embrace it. Don't say ma inside. Don't say but inside. Yes, I could be liberated in this life. It's up to God. It's not up to me. It's up to my efforts, but it's ultimately up to God. But say yes to God. Say yes to Master. Say yes to it all. Otherwise, we'd never get out of bed. We have to make the effort. We have to say yes. So when next time you hear in a talk or whatever it is, you could be liberated in this life. It was always the prayer that in the Kriya ceremony, for those that are not Kriya Bonds, this is a ceremony that is a part of our meditation, advanced meditation techniques, and it's an initiation ceremony. And there is a part of it where we make a spiritual wish. And Swamiji, when he was leading a Kriya ceremony, would always say his spiritual wish for everyone present, that you would be liberated in this life. And every time you hear it, but, okay, next time you hear it, don't say but. Relax, breathe, relax, open your heart, and say yes. If God wills it, it will be so. Yes, I will be liberated in this life. I could be liberated in this life. However you need to say it, but embrace it rather than ma. Okay? And so that's me throwing out a challenge to you that is something we need to consider. So In the, excuse me, I'm going to bring it over. In the longer reading of this Rays of the One Light, there is a longer version of the reading we heard. Swamiji says that we are needing to do the work, which is why energy is the affirmation for this reading. That we do not come to the feet of God and union with God without the effort that we make on a daily basis. But the effort can even be toward transcendent rather than just doing. In other words, trying to be in a state of transcendence, trying to be in a state where you're looking at the world around you beyond the apparent, beyond the obvious. Swamiji would often say, when you're in the shower, as you soap your body, imagine that one day this is going to be dust. This is not even real. Or if it's real, it's temporarily real. This is why they have strange rituals in India where they meditate in a graveyard to remind themselves that this me will not be me forever. It has an expiration date. It will change. It will be something new and different. These are aspects of the spiritual life that maybe we don't like very much or don't want to get close to. The only reason for it is to remind us of the temporariness of what is here, but that a part of us is eternal, immortal, infinite. And we're trying to tune into that part of ourselves. And so a reminder that yes, this, not only will it not be here, it'll be dust. Stardust, a nice thought, but dust nevertheless. And so these are good exercises for us to remember that I am an infinite, immortal soul, temporarily housed in a body, in a physical body, that it will be gone, and everyone else I know will be dust, but not in their infinite forms, not in their soul nature. So remembering our true soul, our true nature, and know that the way that Master ended the Whispers from Eternity, dance in me your dance of destruction and your cosmic love. He's reminding us that this is not because what do people feel when they experience the infinite Lord, the infinite God. They feel bliss, they feel joy, they feel love that we can't even imagine, peace beyond understanding. It's that the great masters and poets and sages are trying to help us to understand. You think you know love, you think you know joy, but wait till you taste the divine version of those things. Do you understand? It's very limited here, but your divine birthright is the unconditional love, peace beyond understanding, ever new joy. No moment of sinking or going down or depression. Always elevated, always ever new bliss. That's who you really are in your infinite divine nature. See each other, see yourself in that light. And God bless you.